Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I am going to share my screen. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon for our local planning committee number 3 as part of the Norwich Downtown Revitalization Initiative. We're excited to be back and have a lot of information to present to you today. So, but a lot of exciting information too. So let's get to it. In terms of, yep.
Sorry to interrupt. If we're supposed to see your screen, we don't.
Oh, it's not. It said it was working. Goodness. Okay. How's that? Is that any better? Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Sorry about that. Okay. So just a quick overview of our agenda this afternoon. So we're going to just be providing a quick project status update from the past month since last time we met. And then the bulk of the meeting will be going through the proposed projects that are on our board, both from the DRI application that the city submitted, as well as those that were received through the open call for proposals. Then we'll just wrap up with next steps and open it up for any comments and questions. So just a little housekeeping, just to keep in mind that this is a working session for the Norwich DRI Local Planning Committee. So the project team won't be responding directly to public comments as part of the meeting, but feel free to submit comments and questions in the chat throughout the meeting. And we will make sure that the LPC sees all of those discussion points. And then at any time, you're also welcome to share any feedback with the committee or the project team via our www.norwichdri.com webpage as well. I'll pass it to you, Carrie, for the reading of the preamble.
Okay. Each local planning committee member is reminded of their obligation to disclose potential conflicts of interest with respect to any of the projects that may be discussed today. If you have a potential conflict of interest regarding a project you believe will be discussed during the meeting, please disclose it now and recuse yourself from any discussion or vote about that project. For example, you may state that you or a family member have a financial interest in the project, or that you are on the board of an organization proposing the project. Do any members need to make a disclosure?
Carrie, I do. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Mhm.
I assisted with the Friends of the Park for their proposal, and they fall under the Business Improvement District, kind of as an arm of the BID. So I'm going to just let you know that.
Adrian has her hand up. Go ahead, Adrian.
Hi, yeah, so I am a new member of the City of Norwich Planning Commission. So any of the City of Norwich projects, I won't be able to vote or discuss.
Okay, thank you. Alicia?
Yes, hi. The makerspace and theater improvement is for the Shenango Arts Council is my project. And also I'm recusing myself from that. And also the Norwich Center at 27 West Main Street, I'm also recusing myself from that for the new elevator outside. So 2 projects.
Okay, thank you. Jamie?
Yes, I, as the executive director and CEO of the Norwich YMCA, we submitted an application for a beautification project and a generator for emergency management. So I will recuse myself from any discussion on that application.
Thank you. Robert, Jeffrey?
Yep. Since I am an elected official in the city of Norwich, representing the city, I'll have to recuse myself from any of the projects that were submitted by or included about with the city of Norwich from the application.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Dolliver?
Yeah, as well as Alderman Jeffrey, as an elected official, I have to recuse myself from any discussion on the city's application.
Thank you. John?
I did submit a form earlier today, but I think when it comes to the Eaton Center, because Shenango Memorial Hospital is a major leaser there, I don't know whether that's it doesn't impact us and doesn't have any interest with us, but I submitted the form anyway.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple as well, just because of Commerce Shenango and the IDA and Development Shenango Corporation, all those great things under one roof. So I am recusing myself from the Railroad Trail conversation, the downtown boutique hotel, the downtown visitor center, the red roof improvement, and the small project grant fund.
Carrie,
Yes.
I have to recluse myself from the railroad project because I'm on the Historical Society board. I did assist the Jewish Center a little with their application. I am a member of the Friends of the Museum District, and I know they applied for some signage. I'm head of the Planning Commission for the city, but I don't know if it's a conflict because nothing came to planning. I don't know if Adrian felt differently, so I feel I should say something. And I did put in a proposal as well for the Chair Society. So
Thanks, John. Yeah, I think we said if you're on the local planning committee for the city, that would recuse yourself from city projects, but thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And just a follow up to this as well. So earlier this morning or afternoon, I did send a recusal form to all LPC members. So if you have a chance this week, please fill out that form related to any projects that you may have a conflict with, and please send that back to me at my email. I believe everyone has my email, but if not, I can put it in the chat as well. It's just important that we have those on file. And then related to the conflict of interest and recusal forms, we can discuss these projects today, and it really just comes down towards the end of the process, voting on which projects will be or will not be in the strategic investment plan. So don't feel as though you can't discuss the projects in general or provide factual information for specific projects as well. Okay, so just a quick update on project status. So since our last meeting, we actually just released a community survey related to downtown revitalization visioning for the general community. So this is a 13-question survey that we posted on the norwichdri.com website. And this can be taken by residents, businesses, business owners, employees, anyone really who has an interest in the Norwich's downtown can provide their feedback through this survey. So please send it through your networks and encourage those that you know in the area to take this survey, and we will compile all that information and see if it changes any of those vision, goals, and strategies that we discussed at the last meeting as well. And then related to the vision, goals, and strategies that we discussed at the last meeting. So based on the feedback that we received at our second meeting, our team did revise the overall Norwich DRI vision, goals, and strategies. And we did send this back to everyone a few weeks back. And didn't know if there were any questions or comments on those, but we will really be using those to weigh and evaluate some of the projects that come in through this DRI process as well, to make sure that all of the projects that will officially be recommended by the LPC to be included in the strategic investment plan have a direct correlation to the overall revitalization goals for downtown Norwich. And then a large part of what our team has been working on over the last month is going through the open call application. So if you remember, we did have an open call for proposals. All of the applications through that open call were due on March 18th. And we did receive 19 project proposals through that call. So quite a few. So our team has been busy at work reviewing those proposals, as well as getting in touch with project sponsors to really just do our due diligence in making sure that we're understanding each of those projects accurately and gathering more information where necessary. So we will have a chance to go through all of those proposals, as well as the city's DRI application projects in detail, and we'll have a fruitful meeting here. Okay. As you know, we have been, we did schedule out all of our LPC meetings throughout the entire process. However, we were thinking that, since COVID has, the regulations and restrictions due to COVID are lightening up and people are now starting to get back in person for meetings, we were thinking it would be a good opportunity in May to hold our next LPC meeting as well as public workshop number 2 in person. So we are proposing that we change our original May 9th date that we had on our calendars to May 12th to hold both an in-person session for the LPC and public workshop at the Norwich High School. So just wanted to get feedback and make sure that this is okay with everyone in terms of meeting in person. And then just to say that there will also be a virtual meeting option as well, in case those of you who cannot attend in person would like to participate in the meeting. Any concerns about us moving forward in this direction for May 12th?
This is Adrienne. My only question is, so as an LPC member, we would also be encouraged to attend the public workshop as well as the traditional meeting on that same day?
Yes, you would be encouraged to attend. I would say that both of the meetings will be very similar. And we're actually excited to do this in person because, so once we review all of the projects today, we will be updating our project list. And then the itinerary for the May 12th meeting would be to go through all the projects again at a high level. And we actually want to give you $10 million in play money and have you spend your money on projects that you think are would best fulfill revitalization goals for Norwich. And then we will also be conducting that same exercise with the public as well. So it's very interactive, and you wouldn't necessarily have to stay for that interactive portion of the public workshop, but and understanding that's a big time commitment from probably like 3 to 7 p.m. So I guess it would be everyone's personal choice if they wanted to stay for that session as well.
Okay, thank you.
James?
I just see on that date, there's also another larger community event taking place that afternoon, early evening. I believe it's the Boy Scout Commitment to Excellence Dinner, recognizing the Bio family, which is one of the Boy Scout dinners, which is a pretty large event. I don't know if that would conflict with any of the folks in this group, but there could definitely be some overlap of folks wanting to go to that dinner as well.
I think we're at that time in the year, Jamie, where no matter what night we pick, we're going to conflict with something. It's just the nature of the beast. So I don't know. I think as long as we have enough LPC members that can go, and I don't know. I mean, I love doing something in person. And I mean, he's not on right now, but shout out to Scott Ryan for offering his space. It's big enough. We can spread out. It's going to be in the gym. Really make it interactive and people can feel safe. So
time is the dinner, Jamie?
That's what I'm trying to read on the Evening Sun newspaper right now. I'm not seeing a time, I'm just seeing the date.
I guess just the only thing I would make a recommendation of is just be mindful at usually about 3 o'clock. I believe that's about the same time that there's dismissal from both the high school and middle school. So it probably would be difficult for parking if there are people that are looking to attend the LPC meeting, but that'd be the only note that I would make.
Okay. Okay. We can talk more to Scott Ryan. I don't think he's on the call this afternoon, about to see if there's any issues with dismissal and kind of that aspect of it. But I don't know if anyone else had any ideas for a large space that we could host a public workshop in. We were going to be in the gymnasium and have that spot reserved, but we can also look into other options if people know of any, and don't have to say any right now, but you can always email me. Okay. All right, well, we'll tentatively go with May 12th, and if anything changes, we will let everyone know. Okay. So jumping in, just wanted to provide a purpose of today's meeting, which will be to review all of the projects that we have as part of the DRI. And as part of this, we were just wanted to say that we do want to identify projects that will truly transform downtown and lead to revitalization. Everyone did receive a copy of the spreadsheet that I sent with all of the projects that are proposed as of right now. And there are 33 projects total at approximately a $2.3 million DRI request. So we will get into specifics of those, but just wanted to kind of explain that we will eventually, and hopefully today, we will be able to cut down this list a little bit, just because we wanted to be in that $12 to $15 million range of projects that we will be submitting as part of the strategic investment plan. So our goal today is really to maybe eliminate some of those projects that might be better suited for other funding sources. So as you can see here on the screen, for every project that we are going through, wanted to identify priority projects. So those that our team should be developing further with project sponsors, those that truly will transform downtown and are ready for implementation. We also want to identify pipeline projects. So these are projects that meet downtown revitalization goals. However, they might not be completely ready for this process or maybe better suited for other funding sources. And then we also have indeterminate projects. So projects that need more information before an official determination is made, whether it's going to be eliminated from this process or not. So as we're going through projects, I kind of want to categorize each of those projects into one of these categories. And we'll have to make some, hopefully not too tough decisions, but we have a lot of great projects on the ballot, but I also have some recommendations for projects that might be better suited for other funding sources as well. So we'll go through those one by one. Any questions on our task here this evening?
Sam, I don't know, I put in a message that he wanted to say something, but it's not working. I tried to make him a panelist and then I tried to give him permission to talk, but he still has to unmute himself and he's on a phone. Do you know how to tell him how to do that? I don't know how to do that from a phone.
I do not.
LPC members, I know there's a number you can hit or something to tell me. If he wants to say something, I feel bad he can't. I don't know how else to do it.
Okay.
Oh, someone said *6.
Yeah.
Let's try that. Thank you, Ben.
Okay. All right. We'll see if he's able to unmute and we'll go from there. Okay. So jumping right into proposed projects. So we have 18 open call proposals totaling approximately $9.6 million in DRI requests and 15 DRI application proposals totaling approximately $5.7 million in DRI requests. So on the ballot as of right now, there are 33 total projects at about $25.3 million in DRI funding requests. So the total project cost is even higher than that. The actual amount is likely higher than this $25.3 million too, because some of the applications that we received through the open call did not have cost estimates associated with them. There are a couple other projects that we still need to do a little bit more information gathering to identify reasonable project costs. And then some projects within the open call for proposals, as well as the DRI application projects, just have an estimated project cost. So in many cases, project sponsors were not able to get detailed cost estimates and really provided just a general cost estimate. So there are several cases where the actual project cost is likely higher than what is shown as of right now. And then in addition to that, there also might be some instances where project sponsors had construction costs identified a few years ago and just haven't had a chance to update total project costs as of right now. So just knowing the climate right now in terms of labor and construction costs, materials, things like that, these are likely to bring all the cost estimates up a little bit. So just kind of wanted to preface the conversation that we have a lot of great projects, but that we do need to start making, hard decisions and eliminate those that we can better focus our team's resources on to really generate and develop projects that are truly transformative and the right fit for this DRI funding.
Sam, can you remind me what's the, never mind. You're ahead of me.
Okay, yep, perfect. So yes, in terms of basically where we're trying to get to, and we do not need to get to $12 to $15 million range today, but there are some projects that I think could be eliminated during today's discussion, but just so everyone has it in their mind, we really need to start thinking about which projects fit into this pot of funding and which are the right, which are dedicated for DRI and which could be dedicated for maybe other funding sources. For example, the consolidated funding application is likely opening up within a few weeks to a month, and there are a lot of other state funding or federal or local sources that could be well suited for some of these projects. So, but overall, at the end of this process in June, we need to have between $12 to $15 million submitted as part of that strategic investment plan. And just another note too, so $10 million in funding, that's sectioned off for Norwich, but that $12 million in funding that we submit as part of the strategic investment plan will really provide a little bit of buffer for the state when evaluating projects. So say all the projects were funded by the state, there would be, in case some of those projects fall off or a project sponsor wasn't able to continue with the project, there is another project in the back that could be brought forth and funded as part of that as well. Okay, so in terms of the project types, so this map here just shows a general location of where all of the projects are as of right now, and we'll be going through each of these project categories as defined by the DRI program. So the first, we have 20 projects in the new development or rehabilitation project type, 10 projects, 10 public improvement projects, 2 branding and marketing projects, and 1 project grant fund that is proposed. And just a little bit of a reminder about project evaluation criteria. So as we are going through all of these projects, I want everyone to keep these 6 criteria in their mind. So is the project something that aligns with both the state's DRI program goals as well as those vision goals and strategies that we came up with at our last meeting specifically for downtown Norwich? Does the project have a catalytic effect, and is it likely to spur additional investment within downtown Norwich? Is the project ready? So that's kind of a two-pronged sword. So is the project well enough developed that we know enough information that we're able to generate realistic cost estimates, but also is the project sponsor ready to implement that project within a relatively short time frame. So for this, the DRI program specifies that projects should be ready to be implemented within 2 years of grant funding. Is the project cost effective? And do project sponsors in many cases have other sources of funding to leverage to provide a match for specific projects? Does the project sponsor have the capacity and demonstrate an ability to implement and sustain a successful project? And does the project result in not only benefits to the project sponsor and a particular development or public improvement, but does it overall support the broader community? John, I see you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm looking at this evaluation criteria and I don't see it, and maybe I'm missing it. Is there anything that talks about the ongoing ability to sustain? I see the capacity piece, but what I mean by that is to make sure that if we're saying we're going to get 10 out of the deal, how do we monitor to make sure we're going to get 10 out of the deal? You know, an ongoing monitoring to make sure that we're getting what we said we were going to get, or something near that. I don't know if that comes into play anyplace else, if it's even a consideration.
I guess I'm a little bit confused about your question. Is that related to the actual project sponsor, or?
I don't know who it's related to. The bottom line is, if it's a project that says we're going to do this for this amount of money and this is what it's going to do for the community or for downtown Norwich, how are we going to know if it does what it says it's going to do for downtown Norwich? Is there going to be some kind of ongoing monitoring of that to make sure that we're actually achieving the goal of what we set out for? I mean, like anything, you set your goal and then you work to achieve it. But unless you're monitoring it, you don't know if you've hit your goal. So that's all I'm asking.
Sure, absolutely. I think there are some metrics that we could identify as part of the project profile in evaluating these projects with the project sponsor that, you know, whoever is implementing this project could really look to these metrics to track and evaluate that ongoing monitoring as it's being implemented, and even the impacts and effects after implementation as well.
Yeah,
Sam,
that would be great.
And I was going to say, just adding on to that, John, you know, your point regarding criteria, I think that's important for the LPC to take into consideration as well. Is the sponsor and the project, are they likely to be able to implement and oversee the successful completion of that project? So that should absolutely be taken into account and as another consideration for the LPC.
Yeah, this is Julie Sweet, and I concur with Kimberly. I think it's really important for you to evaluate as part of capacity and ability to sustain that project, implement it, and sustain the project. Ultimately, the state agencies that have the contract with that project sponsor will be responsible for ensuring that they meet their, the obligations and what they've set forth in terms of a project scope, financial commitment, everything else.
Thank you. John, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Perfectly.
Great. Okay. All right. Any other questions before we kind of jump in here to each of those projects that we'll be talking about? All right. Okay, so the first category we have is public improvement projects. So there are 10 proposed projects with $11 million in DRI funding requests. Most of these are from the DRI application, and we did have one from the open call as well. Okay, so American Avenue enhancements. So This would involve the conversion of American Avenue from what you see here on the screen. It's a one-way route from Broad Street to Colonial Place into a pedestrian-only access. And as part of this, our team will be working with the city to really identify specific streetscape improvements, pavement treatments, pedestrian amenities, and public art opportunities to really transform the space, make it more walkable and more welcoming from Broad Street. So as of right now, this is a project that would be sponsored by the City of Norwich, and it's a total project cost and a DRI funding request of $600,000. And just a reminder that public and nonprofit entities are eligible to request funding up to 100% of the total project cost, whereas private sponsors are eligible up to 40% of the total project cost. So I guess just starting off here, is this a project that we think is truly transformative for downtown and supports our overall DRI revitalization goals?
Mayor Dolliver, can I ask, have you had that preliminary discussion with traffic safety? Are they on board with this?
Yeah, and I was just talking to Sam the other day, but so they had some questions about it, and so they will be meeting soon. But I think we decided to talk about the pedestrian part for the length of the McLaughlin's building. So the rest from the parking lot on would be street. So that's what they're going to be looking at. I think the meeting's tomorrow. So
Great. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Awesome.
So is this just an overview session, or is this also an opportunity for question and answer as the projects are proposed?
This is an opportunity for question and answer, and I think that throughout this process, we're going to start categorizing this as, is this a priority project that the LPC would like our team to further work with project sponsors to develop? Is this something that maybe comes off that initial DRI list and something that we can use for other funding sources and recommend those other funding sources? Or is this something that we maybe need more information from each project sponsor and more information to provide to you in order to kind of continue the development of these projects?
Great, thanks, Sam. And I guess my thoughts as I'm speaking here, I just want to make sure that the rest of the neighbors, on American Ave and rear access to the buildings on Broad Street are, in the loop on this. I could definitely see some positive enhancements, but what is the parking looking like behind McLaughlin's, the Norwich Police Department, Elks Department? I also see that there's a proposal for the Ungentine building on this list as well, and I know that is at the end of American Avenue. So I'm just curious how all of these will tie together collectively, positively, and with the enhancement of it. I mean, so there's lots of potential, but from my aspect, a lot of questions still.
Absolutely. And that's something our team will be working with too, is making sure we answer these questions for you. So if there is, if there is question about, whether adjacent property or business owners are in support of this, that is something we can go back and get answers to in order for you all to make your decision about whether this should stay on or come off. And then your question about public parking. So there is another city project to improve parking, and one of those parking lots is right behind this McLaughlin building right here. We don't have specific concept plans for that as of right now, just a general cost estimate. And then, as you mentioned, the Ungentine building, which you can see in the rear of this picture, is also a project on the ballot for us to consider.
Along with the McLaughlin building is on the application too, so.
Correct.
Just to comment on it, are these applications from the city, are they somewhat accurate pricing, or did they just put numbers down?
So
You know.
for these city ones, these are ones that our team has looked at and put together cost estimates for. So these are something that can also be refined during the process, but as an initial blush, these are what our team believes would be the project cost for these streetscape improvements.
And the McLaughlin's building does own a significant amount of the parking behind it. The city does not own all of that parking. And then the other thing is, like Jamie had said, there is another, the proposal for the International Fair Society has it included that American closed with kind of redoing some of that building to make that a pedestrian area. So
I think as a pedestrian area, it could be really made into something nice looking. So you wouldn't have cars going up and down. And from what I've understood is the entrance is on the side where you go up, not from the front. So it would be a totally different view and a very interesting one, I think.
Thank you, Patsy. Okay, so it sounds like we maybe need to get a couple more answers related to adjacent property owners and maybe talk with all of you about the correlation between different other different projects that are proposed as part of the DRI process. But as of right now, it seems like something that should stay on.
I would think so.
Okay, great. Okay, the second project here is Broad Street enhancements. So this includes streetscape enhancements, including upgraded sidewalks, the installation of pedestrian amenities such as benches, planters, pedestrian lighting, installation of EV charging stations on Broad Street. And this generally extends from Rexford Street to Conkey Avenue, which is basically the entire length of the DRI area. And I will mention too that this also includes the Friends of the Museum District also submitted an open call proposal for Broad Street enhancements, basically on Broad Street from Rexford Street to Mitchell Avenue. And this project includes that total project cost, and we want to ensure, and the city and Friends of the Museum District have also been in contact to make sure that this would be a seamless streetscape enhancement project along Broad Street. But as of right now, the preliminary cost estimate is $3 million with a $3 million DRI funding request, but would be something that the city would be the project sponsor for.
Sam, can I ask a question? This is something some committee members have asked, so I'll, when it comes to things like this, if like saying that we're saying, yes, this is something that we'd like to see, is the LPC going to have a chance to see what that might look like before we have the final vote? Like, I guess, and I know when there's a project sponsor, it's really their project to vet or have these conversations and work through those plans with their committees or whatever, but is that part of the approval process, or are we just approving the investment of the funds and that's it?
No, you will have a chance to see the total project profile once it's all developed, as well as any conceptual plans that our team puts together to really show what those improvements will look like. And then in addition to that, I should also explain that we will also be sharing the open call applications that we receive through this process with the LPC as well. So I realize there may be some projects on here that the LPC would like a little bit more information for, and we can definitely provide that. But just wanted to get everyone's initial reaction to these projects and see if there were some that, definitely make sense, or some that just definitely might need to come off, and ones that our team shouldn't be kind of developing further with project sponsors.
And Sam, this is Julie Sweet. Just to follow up on that, I think it's key that you mentioned that LPC members will have a chance, and the public will be able to see the conceptual designs that are being proposed as part of the strategic investment plan. However, it's important to note that a project like this and many of these other projects will still need to go through a full engineering and design process if they're funded. So that would happen down the road if they were to receive DRI funds. The first thing that that project sponsor, in this case the municipality, would do is hire a firm to do all the design and prepare construction drawings. And I would presume that as part of that, there would be a robust community engagement process if there's still need to flesh out the design and the components of that project. So that that will hold true for many, if not most of the projects that are being proposed. They'll still need to have design. The other thing I wanted to mention very quickly is that EV charging stations are listed as part of this. We have a partnership with New York Power Authority. They have an EV Evolve New York program to install fast chargers. They've been installing these in many of our DRI communities. They like coming into the downtowns. It brings people to the downtown to take advantage of the local shops and restaurants while their vehicles are charging. And that's at no cost to a municipality. We've made NIPA aware of Norwich's interest in having EV stations. So, we'll be following up with them. There's no guarantee that it will meet their program requirements, but they're certainly aware, and we'll take a look at any opportunities that fit with their program.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Yes, I would also, yes, thank you, Julie. Okay. I guess show of support for those that would like to see Broad Street enhancements as something that should be further developed by our team.
Can I comment, or is it too late?
No, you can comment, John.
I mean, a lot of this, I can remember the garbage cans and benches getting done in my lifetime, and I'm not that old. And to me, this whole downtown revitalization is supposed to give new things to the city and just really develop things that would not normally be done. To me, things like benches and garbage cans are general maintenance in a lot of these parking lots that we're going to see. And it just seems like things have been neglected and people are jumping on the bandwagon because there's an opportunity. And that's my 2 cents. But, things like EV charging stations are going to bring new people here. Having 4 garbage cans instead of 3 is not going to bring anybody new to Norwich, because it's just not going to. The things that are different and are bringing people to Norwich. I'm not going to other towns because they have so many garbage cans or so many benches. And I know it's going to be a hard thing to say because we need those things, but I just feel that, doing general maintenance is not what this is for. And I feel like some of these projects are definitely general maintenance.
Okay. Thank you, John. And then I guess another point I could make is that the LPC could request a change in the scope generally in some of these projects as well. So if there were things that you didn't want to see, such as pedestrian amenities or things like that, that is something that the LPC could request, could be modified.
Sam, can I comment on John's statement about the garbage cans, just
Sure.
briefly? So I'm the executive director for the Norwich Business Improvement Project. I just recently linked up with BOCES, and they refurbished and painted all the garbage cans. We're working on the benches here in the next little while, but I think, John, you're absolutely 100% right. But I think in addition to some of them in different locations would be nice to have, especially if American Ave gets done. There's a lot of elderly folks that walk up and down North and South Broad Street that use those benches kind of as a resting point throughout the way. So I totally agree with what you said, John, but there is, and I also agree that there's a maintenance side of the current things that we have. And we are working with the city on that to upgrade those. But I think there's certainly potential for some additional benches and trash cans throughout.
But $3 million for benches and garbage cans, a lot of money. That's my.
Well,
I do.
Also
I
agree.
think-
includes those sidewalks and
Yeah, that's a lot more
things
than
like that.
benches and garbage cans that
Right.
they're proposing. But, and again, once we can see the overall proposal and what exactly it is they're looking to get done, I think it'll give us a better idea as well.
Sam, I have another
Thank you.
question. About some of this stuff, I know in other communities, they've been able to couple things like this when there's also street work happening. And I know sidewalks is a little bit of a stretch when it comes to roadways, but I also know that there's been a lot of talk about DOT coming in and doing some updates. I don't know, Brian, you probably know better about if it's actually down Route 12 or not, but is there a chance that some of these things could actually be less of a cost because we can couple it with a DOT project?
Yeah, I think that I'm looking at some of the things on this and I'm thinking to myself, I mean, some of this does need to be done, others could be left. So I would just say maybe using a scalpel, my analogy. But yeah, that is a very high number. I do agree. If you want your benches and your garbage cans to be uniform, and you're going to do something different, then you might want to look at doing something altogether. But if you're okay with what the current thing is, that's fine as well.
I think if we're going to, redo and enhance downtown, it has to, a lot of the things like we were saying, you have to see it, right? You've got to be able to see it. It's got to spur additional investment. Things could use a little bit of a facelift. So I think that was my question earlier about, will we actually see? I mean, I think at the end of the day, if we see what these things actually are, then maybe like Brian said, take a scalpel to it. And, I think it's definitely worth exploring more, but I think it's a big number and we might have to just drill down into what these things actually are before we give a clear yes.
Okay.
Would be my suggestion.
Okay. All right, and our team can go back and make some recommendations too, based on this conversation, and we can come back at the next LPC meeting with some changes in correlation with what the city would like to see, as well as the Friends of the Museum District too.
This is Julie again. I don't think DOT is on this call, Pam, or if someone else is on, please speak up if I'm wrong. But we have looped them in to this process, and so we will engage them as needed for any guidance that they can provide.
Okay. All right, the next project is also very similar. So Main Street enhancements, so similar scope. So streetscape enhancements, including sidewalk upgrades, benches, planters, pedestrian lightings, really just making the overall area very walkable, very welcoming, and safer to travel on for various modes of transportation. So the project sponsor for this would also be the City of Norwich with a preliminary cost estimate and DRI funding request of $1.2 million. And this basically extends from Guernsey Street to the rail corridor, which is the extent of our DRI area. Initial reactions to this project.
Is there any overlap between this project and the Broad Street enhancement projects with other applications that have been submitted when it comes to front facade or not facade, sidewalks? So for example, a portion of the WISE proposal in our open call application was new sidewalks. Well, our property is on Broad Street, so we fall between that Conkey Avenue and Rexford Street, which is a long spot. I also know there was a Friends of the Park proposal. I didn't know if any of that also included sidewalks, because the Guernsey to the railroad track, there's a portion of the parks project in that footprint. So I didn't know if there was any overlap with similar requests.
With the YMCA, that would probably be the only overlap that I am aware of. And in that case, I would say my recommendation would be to combine the streetscape enhancements that were included as the YMCA, and this was something that I was going to talk about too, included as the YMCA project, and merge that with Broad Street enhancement project. So that project cost would essentially come off of the YMCA project. And that's something our team would make sure that there are no overlap. And the reason why we would suggest that the city be the project sponsor for any sidewalk enhancements or streetscape enhancements would be because they would be the one that would be able to implement it and maintain it over time.
Perfect. Thanks for the clarification.
Could we go? I hate to put things out of order, but I have a foundation meeting that I have to go to. Could we talk about the boutique hotel?
Yeah, we can jump to that one really quick if you need to hop off, Patsy.
Do you mind? Okay, I just want to know how other people feel about it.
Sure. Okay, so the Downtown Boutique Hotel. So this is a property that is on Broad Street, 14 to 16 South Broad Street. It is currently owned by Development Shenango Corporation, but would be a project that is sponsored by a private developer to build rehabilitate the existing building into a 45-unit boutique hotel. It also includes parking lot improvements to the city-owned Hayes Street parking lot, as well as improvements to the existing alleyways that kind of exist underneath the building that connect to Broad Street and Main Street. It's my understanding that the developer that would be the project sponsor for this project also has a resolution with the city to basically make those improvements to the Hayes Street parking lot. So that would not be a conflict in terms of making any improvements to public spaces. But the preliminary cost estimate is estimated at about $8 million. And then they are requesting approximately 40% from the DRI, so approximately $3.2 million. So my question in line with the other ones we've been talking about is, does this project meet the goals of downtown Norwich for revitalization, and something that our team should be looking into further developing with the project sponsor?
Well, what I feel is necessary is anybody that comes to Norwich when they want to go to the bank or any other place that has a good reputation, they send their people 20 miles away to find a decent place to live for the night or to get food. It cannot be found in Norwich. And that's one of the problems is we want that boutique hotel, which is going to be small and perfect for what we have. I mean, we have so many things going on in Norwich, but nobody can find a space in Norwich to spend the night. And I feel that this hotel will change things and will bring more people in to spend the night and have a decent meal at the hotel.
I think this is one of those projects that I really need to see more plans on, to see, you know, there's all sorts of rumors going around that there'll be stores down in the bottom and that houses are going to be torn down. And one of my concerns is, you know, are we going to be losing taxable properties if we're doing a hotel with a not-for-profit owner, or however all that works? So this, I'm all for something like this, but I think there's a lot to this that I'd like to see more involved in the plans for this particular project.
For me, it's something that, you know, the DRI is meant for projects like this. And this is something I think we should be encouraging, certainly, to see more plans. But, you know, the tax basis, right now we're losing basically all the money because everybody's going elsewhere. And so I think we need to look at where the money is spent at night, the next morning, the next few days when the person, or family, or whoever stays here. So this is definitely something that we should look.
Other thoughts?
Does no one else have a thought?
If I can say one thing, regarding I mean, I know this continues to come up with the parking. I have an opinion. Obviously, I walk that parking lot daily, and there's plenty of parking there. Now, I'm not suggesting that we may not need more parking, but I don't feel it's as big of an issue as perhaps others might see it as. I think that the one thing will take care of the other. I really do. So as far as, before we get too crazy about tearing houses down, I would suggest perhaps let's just see how this works out. But I think that there's at least 30, 35 parking spaces that are empty already, and more parking spaces are available within a block of each other. So I think it's going to kind of take care of itself, but I mean, that just doesn't seem to be as big of an issue, perhaps, to me.
I think it's definitely worth exploring further. This one seems like a no-brainer to me.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's worth exploring further, but I'd like to see some information on how, are we going to fill 45 units? If it's truly a 45-unit boutique hotel, would there be that many people on a regular basis that would constitute or warrant doing 45 units? I'd like to see the data that supports that. This is the highest cost project on this list, and it's, we want to make sure we get them, again, looking at it down the road. Are we getting our money's worth?
Yeah, I agree, John.
Okay. And I will also note that our team, we also have Dan Stevens, who provided that market analysis overview, could also take a dive into hotel demand and provide some information related to that market piece for the LPC to help make their decision as well. But it sounds like for now, let's keep this on the board, and we'll further develop it with the project sponsor and come back with some more information.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thank you, Patsy. I'm going to go back to public improvement projects. Where was I? Okay. So rail with trail. So this is the existing New York State, New York and Susquehanna rail. I'll turn around now. But basically the rail line that exists on the east side of the Norwich DRI area, and currently an active rail line, but technically inactive. So there aren't really any active customers that utilize this line. We have been in conversation with the rail line itself to see if it is possible to develop a multi-use trail alongside the existing rail. And they are in support and would just have to work through some details with us. But basically this multi-use trail would help to enhance walkability and connectivity within downtown Norwich, and would extend along the rail line from approximately Rexford Street to Mitchell Street. So as of right now, this would be a project that would be sponsored by the city and is estimated at a total project cost and DRI request of $1 million.
I might seem pretty negative, but if we're putting, all this money into downtown on the sidewalks, this is also a lot of money for more walking.
I just don't know where that line is. Again, with me being on the planning commission, I don't want to overstep, but none of these projects came to the planning commission beforehand, so I feel like I can have an opinion. So with this one particularly, I think for me, it's a safety thing. So I definitely think that if it would be worth exploring further just for the safety use. But I do agree with John that it seems duplicitous to have a lot of these pedestrian amenities. So we'd have to look at the big picture as things get further down the road.
I'm very, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim. I feel like if we're gonna do the rail trail to Mitchell Street, wouldn't it make more sense to at least go to East Main Street where the, people could walk down to the parks downtown and down to the stores downtown. From Mitchell Street to Rexford Street, you're kind of dead ending in the middle of housing community and not so much down in the business areas.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tracy. Basically, I'm very supportive of a rail to trail concept. The whole tourism potential with biking and access to our trails and the greenway and the river. I'm all supportive of that. But $1 million between Mitchell and Rexford Street, when 3 applications ago, we had a $3 million request for new sidewalks from Rexford Street all the way downtown. It seems a little bit of a duplicate. I would eventually like to see something longer and greater, access to Weiler Park from, all the way from the city center on a rail to trail, but $1 million for just Rexford to Mitchell Street, which ends right behind the Y. I know that's from DRI northern to that little section right there, but that's just my opinion.
Not to give any, this obviously because of my idea, just sort of a factual update about this. Like Sam said, we're talking with the rail right now about it and with the mayor of the city. It's unclear how much NYSNW is interested in this. We had a preliminary conversation about it, and I definitely think if the LPC wants to move forward with this, we have to talk through it. They had a lot of concerns about if there was enough space, and I know Mayor Dolliver went out there with his tape and measured it to see if it would meet their criteria, and it's possible we may have a space issue for exactly what this is supposed to be. I just want to put that out there. I think, if the LPC decides it's worth betting, there's still some other things that have to get figured out. I just wanted to offer that.
Thank you, Carrie.
I would just, my opinion would be to push this off to future funding opportunities. I think there's enough going on in the city that we can upgrade. And again, I'm all for the rail trail. My wife and I go down to Vestal to walk and run on the rail trail down there. So I'm all for it. I just feel like from Mitchell Street up to Rexford Street is, for lack of a better word, why bother?
So I will also explain that based on my conversation with the city, that this would be part of a phase 1 improvement to overall extending a multi-use trail basically through the entire DRI area and potentially even beyond. But for budgeting reasons and just knowing that there are a lot of other projects on the board, the city wanted to make sure that they weren't utilizing a lot of funding for just this piece. So this would be phase 1 of a multi-phase project. I will say that there are also other sources of funding that this project could utilize from New York State and the federal sources as well. And then in addition to, sorry to cut you off. I would say in addition to just like the multi-use trail itself, this also does include, necessary clearing and grubbing. It also includes protection, fencing, so that, those who are on the trail would be protected from the rail line and or any trains that are going back and forth. It also does include pedestrian amenities, bike racks, benches, planters, some wayfinding signs, as well as lighting to enhance the safety and security. So it's not just the multi-use trail that you see reflected there in that $1 million cost estimate. It does include a couple other things as well, just to provide that full view.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess I heard a couple different viewpoints. So maybe a show of hands, whether we should kind of keep further developing this project, or you think something that could be better utilized for other sources of funding, or something that should just completely come off.
Yeah, my opinion would be to throw this on the back burner for now.
Sort of a pipeline project.
I recently had heard from an individual that there was people looking into getting those railroad pedal cars on the railroad as well. And so I don't know how far that concept has come, but I think it's farther along than we might realize. And if that's true, this project could become a waste of money.
I did hear about the bike rail cars. I don't know much information about them or where that is in its project development stage, but valid point, John.
What is can someone remind me how long, if it's a lease or, who actually owns the rail line and
Yep.
when, yeah.
So Carrie can probably speak better to it.
I know,
than
I'm
can.
sorry. I know we've been through this before, but.
Oh my gosh, the worst question I answer every single week. There's about 6 years left on the pilot. Right now, the IDA owns it on paper, but NYSDW is the actual owner of the rail. Future use is unknown, future train use is unknown. But the rail thing, the rail bike, that is a project going through the IDA. They're actually presenting to the IDA board at their meeting in April. And they are hoping to get that online by the summer. So just to give you a little heads up about the rail bike project. And Adrian, I'd love to have a very long conversation with you about the railroad if you want to know all the ins and outs.
For another day and time. I don't believe I can vote on this one, so I'm just gonna be quiet.
Okay. It sounds like at this point, if there's no objections, I'm going to put this on the pipeline project list and maybe advocate. It sounds like the committee might want to see more walkability or aesthetic public realm enhancements more on the main streets of downtown rather than kind of behind downtown and the main streets and all that action. Is that sort of a fair assessment, and maybe something that we put as a pipeline project and maybe identify other sources of funding for this?
It's also not ready, right? Like if there's 6 years left on that lease or whatever, it's not ready to be implemented. So
sure.
Those are my notes.
Okay. I'm hearing no objections, so that's the direction I'm going to move forward with. All right. Let's go back here. Okay. Downtown parking lot improvements. So this would be basically improvements on city-owned parking lots within the downtown. As of right now, there are 6 identified public parking lots to basically mill, repave, restripe, enhance landscaping, lighting, access improvements, as well as install electric vehicle charging stations on 6 different lots within the downtown. Right now, this would be a project that is sponsored by the city of Norwich, and a total project cost and a total DRI request of $3 million. My question, as all the questions are to you, is this something that is truly transformative for downtown, a good use of your money for this pot of funding and something that you would like to see further developed.
To me, the city has neglected a lot of these parking lots and stuff. And I would like to see, this is my own opinion, things broken out, maybe for all the parking lots. So lighting done in all the parking lots, striping, repaving, you know, separating parking lots that way, you know, EV charging stations. Because to me, right now, if we funded the city, it would basically be the city got $9 million. We had potentially 600,000 for the small pot. Bergman's got 300,000 and we have 100,000 left. My opinion is this is not for parking lots that are going to need it again. This is not going to transform the city. Nobody's coming here because our stripes are really awesome. And I think the city has better luck getting grants from the state for those kind of things rather than individuals. And it's not our fault that they've been neglected. That's my opinion. I'd like to see, you know, we spent a lot of time looking at all these. I guess we're getting close to the end of them, but you know, this is not the first time these conversations have been brought up.
Any others?
I can't disagree, but our parking is definitely in need of being upgraded one way or another. I know lighting is an issue. A lot of the parking lots have potholes, and it's just going to be a matter of, do the taxpayers pay for it, or is there other opportunities for funding?
And Sam, if Julie's not on anymore, I think this too, when it comes to some of these projects, including this one, just because they're asking for 100% doesn't mean we have to give 100%. Is that correct? Like, if there's projects that we get through and we're like, okay, we see that this is maybe for this one, for example, you know, maybe we want to give them 50%, which is a match that they can maybe go and find other additional ways to help support that. Is that possible with these? Do we get to set those, or is it more the agency that sponsors it sets that?
No, you're completely correct, Carrie. So if there is something that the LPC wants to see, and sometimes this is more applicable to private projects, right? Say a project sponsor comes in and asks for 40% of their total project costs. If it's something that the LPC wants to see developed further, included in their strategic investment plan, the LPC has the discretion to request that we go back to the project sponsor and ask if they can maybe increase their private match to the DRI. So in terms of this private and public projects, for public projects, that might be a little bit harder for the city to identify match funding. But yes, that is something that the LPC can discuss as a group.
I mean, I think as we talk about all of these other projects too, I mean, when we first were working on the DRI application, you know, public spaces, safety, lighting, those were all things that were brought up through the, you know, the public forums we had and the surveys that we had. So I totally get John's point. And you know, we've talked a lot about things that are deferred maintenance, and is it really this money's job to fix those things? And I think the answer is no, but I also think the answer is, if we want to be transformative and have an opportunity, we've got to find a way to do it. So maybe it's a partnership between what's happening here and with the city, and maybe there's a way we can find ways. And I know the city has a new grants person, so you know, maybe there's some ways that we can find a way to couple this with something so that we're not completely not doing it, because I think we all agree it needs to be done. But right, John's right, we can't invest $9 million into just city projects. That totally defeats the purpose of this grant.
Sure.
I mean, the other thing is, other cities don't have parking lots that are in distress like ours. So how do other cities do it? You know, we're not a city that has parking lots in New York State.
Okay. I would say for this project, obviously there's 6 total parking lots that are on this list, which I do not have shown on the screen here. Are there particular city lots that are of a priority that we should be looking at for improvements on? Maybe that could cut down the cost of this, or are there specific improvements such as lighting that need to be prioritized over landscaping or things like that?
My
I-
thought is that we should find synergy between other proposed projects.
Mhm.
Obviously, with the hotel and the city parking lot, that makes sense. You know, we haven't gotten to what's going on with, you know, McLaughlin's and Unguentine. So I would prioritize the lots that are adjacent to these other projects as a standalone. Again, I don't know where the line is on whether or not I'm able to say, but I don't feel like this is one that needs to be continued forward with, but it should be thought of as in conjunction with some other projects.
I think we need to see everything broken down before a decision can be made. That's my opinion. But like you said, Adrian, it's not beneficial to pave a parking lot behind somewhere else that's not near anything we're doing functional as a city.
Agreed.
Okay. That's helpful. Okay, maybe this is one that we'll leave on for now, but noting that there might be changes to it based on scope, priorities, and locations. Okay, the next one is Park Plaza. So this is proposed to be on the parcel east of East Park. And this is currently a lot that is owned by Frontier Communications. The mayor has been in contact with Frontier Communications and has a preliminary agreement with them saying that they would be in support of any improvements that happen on this lot. But basically the idea of the project would be to create a flexible multi-purpose space that would be able to accommodate food trucks or other events at various times adjacent to East Park. So it includes things like pavement treatments, lighting, seating, plantings, things like that. So the city would be the project sponsor, and the preliminary estimate is $950,000 in total project cost and DRI request.
I love the
Initial-
idea of this project.
Okay.
I think it's a great thought. Unfortunately, in my mind, we've already got two beautiful parks downtown. If the city could change their ordinances and allow food trucks there, we could surround those parks with food trucks. As opposed to also, if this is private property that we have an agreement on, what happens if, God forbid, that business goes away and sells the property, and then we can't use it anymore, and we spent $950,000 on somebody's beautiful new parking lot. I would rather see something like this go towards the parks that we already have, and make East Park Place and West Park Place accessible to put food trucks on, as well as the downtown areas. It'd be nice to have them down in front of some of the businesses sometime. Again, I'm all for the food trucks. I'm all for a place to do events, but we've got two beautiful parks down there that could do the same thing.
I think this is the kind of plan that we should at least continue to look at because it's very exciting. And whether it's here or somewhere else, you know, maybe it's in a different parking lot or whatever, but this is the kind of thing that I think should be further looked into just because it is exciting. It's different. It hasn't been done in this city.
Yeah, I agree, John.
Yeah, I agree also with Tracy and John. I'm not completely in the know on a lot of things in town, but if I keep my ear to the ground, I hear enough rumors and, you know, what's factual, what's not. We may want to circle back around with Frontier with that agreement. I heard that maybe the Sherburne office building has been closed within the past couple of weeks, and a lot of those employees are now remote and or being relocated to the Norwich office, which may require them to have more parking requirements or needs, which may tie into that space that they have. I don't know numbers. I don't know specifics. I just heard some folks discussing it at the counter at the Y. So, but I like the concept of the food trucks and the variety and the, you know, the newness of the concept.
Okay. Great. Okay, sounds like something the LPC is interested in having, so we'll keep this on as a priority project for right now, and we can come back with more information regarding Frontier's needs for parking and, if we can get a signed agreement with them.
And I think that the point before, utilizing current parks that we have make a lot of sense. And I see further down on the list, we have some park revitalization there. So maybe the two can come together and cut some of this cost and still get what sounds like a pretty good idea.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. Great. Okay, the next project is the installation of security cameras. So this would be to install security cameras in key locations to enhance downtown safety. This is currently a project that is sponsored by the city of Norwich with a preliminary cost estimate of $50,000. So as of right now, just a reminder, this project does not meet the minimum DRI funding request. The DRI minimum funding request for any project is $100,000. So it is also my understanding that this would be the replacement of security cameras in many areas as well as new locations. But as of right now, just based on the conversation that I'm hearing about other project costs and things like that, sounds like to me, because this one doesn't meet the minimum requirements of the DRI and sounds as though money could be better spent elsewhere. To me, maybe this one might be one that could find other sources of funding to implement. Didn't know what the LPC's thoughts were on that though.
Yeah, and this is Adrian, and I know we only have a half hour left, and we're not even through all of the cities, and there's a million other ones that were submitted that I don't know if we can do this, but I would really like to get into some of the other ones because I know we're going to have time to kind of fine tune these requests. But some of this stuff will be the first time that many on the LPC would have even heard of it. And so I think that's more valuable for our time.
Okay. Okay. That sounds good. I guess show of hands, if maybe this one kind of comes off as a DRI project and for DRI funding. Alicia?
I was just kind of surprised how not expensive it is, because I have security cameras at our facility and I know the cost, behind that. I'm all for public safety because I've used our facility cameras both inside and outside for police assistance to make sure that our community is safe. We've used it for good and bad. I don't know if this can be rolled into the park enhancements or the downtown. It's a small amount to be thrown onto a 1.2 or a 3 million elsewhere. So instead of throwing it out, maybe it can roll into another city project.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good thought, Jamie.
Okay.
Tim, I know everybody's worried about time and I don't want to rush through the rest of these. Is it possible to schedule another LPC meeting so that we can keep doing this and we don't have to skip anything just before that May meeting? Because I know the May meeting is when you're looking to us to get some really serious feedback. I know we've got to post them, but I'd love to.
It is possible.
That's a great idea.
I think that's a fantastic idea.
It is possible. And I would say maybe scheduling something the week of the 25th would probably make the most sense for me. So we can look at scheduling another meeting that week if the LPC was interested in doing that. Okay. Does this time frame generally work? Maybe tentatively, and I can reach out to everyone, even those that aren't on the call, but maybe tentatively scheduling for Thursday, the 28th at 3 p.m.
Now, do you want me to do a Google thing? Like, is that
Doodle
the
poll?
only day that week you're free? Or not a Google, a doodle poll? Is that the only day that week you're free?
I'm free Monday, Thursday. Monday and Thursday would be best. The 25th and 28th.
Either of those work for me right now.
Tentatively.
And thank you, Carrie,
either
for
one.
that suggestion.
We could tentatively mark our calendars for the 28th maybe, and then just finalize with Julie and everybody.
Yep. Let's plan on doing that. Okay. Yep. I knew this was going to be a tough meeting to get through, but it's a lot of information. And for that, I thank everyone for working through me with it. So just quickly, this one is city building improvements, the historic rehabilitation of 3 different buildings within downtown. One is City Hall, one would be the fire department, and the last one is the police station. And basically doing brick repointing as well as ADA access of the steps and entrance, currently estimated at $400,000 for a DRI funding request. So the project is partially located outside of the DRI boundary. So the DRI boundary would be required to be amended to include the fire department within this area. So just initial thoughts and reactions on sort of those key points.
To me, this is
John,
a
I'm
no.
going to beat you to it this time. John, I'm going to beat you. I agree that the ADA stuff is necessary. I'm intimately familiar with the fire station. Again, it's a lack of maintenance issue over here, as these buildings aren't that old. I know they do need some repair and some upgrade, but I think this is one that maybe we can, as the mayor said, use a scalpel and kind of work away a little bit. Brian, don't be mad at me because I'm arguing against your points, but I just think that as much as these upgrades and repairs may be needed, but I think the repairs need to, I don't see that as DRI funding.
I agree. I would take this off. Nobody's moving to Norwich because there's bricks that look good on the firehouse.
I know I need to recuse myself, but can I make
You
a
can speak.
factual statement?
Yes, absolutely,
Okay.
Mayor.
So for those that don't know, the city entertained the idea of moving the city hall to the 3rd floor of the fire department a few years back, and it was resoundingly put down by the public. Now, we work with the public. We responded to the fact they didn't want us to leave City Hall. If we're running a business, we would have done it. We would have done it yesterday. But we work for the public. They don't want us on the 3rd floor. I mean, as a matter of fact, if you look at the fire department, pretty much everything used to be there. DPW was there, the police department was there, and now we have 9 buildings as opposed to 1. So I would just suggest the public wants us to be in all these historic places, which are very expensive to run. So when they say it's the city's responsibility, sure, but the public has spoken as well. So they want us in these historic places, but then they want us to figure it out. That's my opinion.
I have 2 things, and so no offense to my co-chair, I have 2 things. One, I'm very hesitant of approving anything outside the DRI boundary, because if we were going to do that, and I know that there's another application, it's not fair to the other possible people who could have applied had we moved the line. So that's the first thing, and that's not against anybody or the 2 applications that we have that are outside the boundary, but I feel like that's not fair to people that could have applied if we were going to move the line. And secondly, as much as I know what Brian is saying, and I agree, these things are not transformative economic development projects. They're not gonna spur additional private investment, which is what this money is meant to do. So that's just my 2 points. I'm not disagreeing with that the city needs these things. I'm not, you know, I think that we might be able to find other ways to do that, but those are my 2 concerns about this.
And I don't disagree with you. I was just making a point in fact that the public wants us to be in an extremely old building that costs a fortune to maintain. So here we are.
Thoughts on whether this is a priority project or a pipeline project that maybe we can identify different funding sources for, or something that we need more information on and more deliberation about?
I would say we just take this off.
Okay. Should we put it to a vote? Those that would like to take this off as a DRI project, but something that we can find additional sources of funding for, if you could raise your hand. Okay. That seems like a majority to me. Thank you, everyone. Okay. So this one is also a city sponsored project, but would include the restoration of Gateman's Tower and the addition of a seating area and just really enhancing the public realm in this area, as well as restoring the fire bell that and creating a display adjacent to Gateman's Plaza as well. So this is estimated as at $100,000 as of right now. But I did talk to one of our staff in-house, and we believe that this might be a little bit more money than $100,000 to enhance this area for Gateman's Tower and the Bell Tower. But didn't know if there were any initial thoughts on this project.
I think it seems like it's not transformative. And I don't know, it potentially could be rolled into something else. But those are my thoughts.
Okay. Thank you, Adrian.
I have a conflict with this one, but like we've said, you know, where's the catalytic effect?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, John. Okay, so that's 2 that I'm hearing. Maybe identifying additional sources of funding for maybe a show of hands for a pipeline project. All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And this is the last public improvement project we have, so park improvements. So this would be enhancements to East and West Park, included in addition to Guernsey Park, which is the library park. But this is a project that was submitted by Friends of the Park, and they would be sponsoring this project in collaboration with the city and Shenango County, who own the parks, but really creating just an opportunity to really enhance the performance spaces and public gathering spaces in the central area of Norwich. So it includes a pavilion, outdoor moving view area, stage improvements, and then additional electrical and water hookups to help facilitate food trucks and performances, space, things like that. Also includes the installation of EV charging stations. So they estimated this preliminary cost at about $735,000. So because they are a nonprofit entity, they are eligible to request 100% of that funding. And I will say that they do have very good plans and detailed cost estimates. So I am confident, and our team will check this, but confident that this is something that could move forward fairly quickly. So I guess something that wanted to talk with all of you about to see, is this something that kind of aligns with our downtown goals, something that's transformative and something you would like our team to kind of further explore with Friends of the Park?
As we raised earlier, is there feasibility of bringing in the Park Plaza initiative into this to be able to get two things out of one? Then now this price may go up a little bit to do the other part of that, but if we save the 950,000 there, because I still like the idea of having the food truck capability and the flexible space. But again, utilize what we have. I would support that.
I agree.
To me, this one, just on the surface of the park improvements that have been identified, this one's a no-brainer. Just the total amount of use it's get, whether it's used during Gus Macker weekend or if it's used during Colorscape or music in the park. I mean, this is just going to get the usage out of it. And, you know, if there's additional improvements made to it, whether it's outlets, speaker systems, it holds so much more potential as a space. So this one's a no-brainer in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I know we talked earlier about the park thing. I think part of the reason that came up when we were first doing the application was because of the limitations with having food trucks downtown in these beautiful, beautiful parks. And I think maybe with all this improvement, maybe it's, offline conversation with the mayor and the city about finally making some changes to some of those codes. It would save us $1 million or so. We could do some of these outlet enhances that we need in these downtown park areas, but it absolutely makes sense. I mean, our parks are full. I have music in the park in the weekend, on the summer, and they're used so much, and it would just be great to find a way to maybe make that happen. So
it looks like they're enhancing, adding on Guernsey Park as well as improving, East and West Parks is in this plan. Obviously, Friends of the Park have been a very well-received group with the work that they've done in the past. Were they also instrumental in the Rexford Street project as well? Were they involved with that? Friends of the Park?
I think there was an overlap.
Yeah, a lot of the same people.
Yeah, so I would love to see the devils in the detail of the plan, but I think as hosting one of the many events that take place in Shenango County here in our parks, I know we would benefit from it. So I don't know if I need to recuse myself, but I like the concept and highlighting our parks.
Okay. So we will keep it in, and we can also go back to Friends of the Park and see if we can make any modifications to maybe do more of a flex space for food trucks in either, the entire general project area too. So more to come on that then. Okay. I know we only have 15 minutes left. Do we want to kind of move forward with the new development and rehabilitation projects and sort of see how far we get in 18 minutes and then schedule another meeting to kind of run through the rest of them? Does that sound good to everyone?
That works for me.
Yep, sounds
I
good.
guess is were these ones we've worked through just more difficult than these ones are going to be? If we spent 25 minutes here instead of 18, would we get through them? And then we don't have to do another meeting. I mean, I like meetings, but
I don't think there's any way we're getting through the whole list. So
Yeah.
I'd rather just continue with the time we have left and schedule the other meeting.
Okay.
Sam, maybe you want to do marketing and branding and then the grant fund because there's only 3 projects in those categories.
Yeah, we can do that. That's a good idea. Thanks, Jeanette. Okay, let's switch to marketing and branding. So these ones
Sam,
are,
I
oops, sorry,
apologize.
Mayor, I didn't see your hand.
That's okay. That's okay. I have to jump off. I apologize. If you have any city questions, you can refer to Alderman Jeffrey.
Thank you so much.
I apologize.
Have a great day.
Sure.
Okay, so for marketing and branding projects, we have 2 proposed projects. One was in the DRI application and one was received through the open call. Whoops, sorry. So the first one is signage and wayfinding. So this was identified as a project in the DRI application, and really just looking at the installation of directional and identification signs in the downtown, really to direct people to key destinations within the downtown. So this would be sponsored by the city of Norwich, and our preliminary cost estimate is $200,000 as a total project cost and DRI funding request. So as of right now, there are no identified locations, but assuming that they would be in key locations in parks or on major roadways where we need to direct people to. Initial thoughts on this project.
A couple
Sam,
things.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know, without knowing, definitely worth looking into further, not knowing the locations or the type of signage would be beneficial to know. Again, there's the potential to be wrapped into other projects, especially if something's happening in the parks and the park is identified as a place where more signage is needed. So I think it's worth keeping on and vetting further.
Thank you, Adrian.
And this is an easy one to kind of split up. So for now, I would leave it.
Okay. Everybody good with that? Okay, thank you. That was an easy one. Okay. The next one is downtown public art. So this was submitted by a private a private sponsor, and really looks at the implementation of different public art projects within the downtown. So there are some identification of murals or sculptures that could be implemented within downtown. However, the issue with this project could be that there is no agreement between what was identified and the existing property owners. So that is something that I would like everyone to take into consideration. So, but overall, the preliminary cost estimate was $225,000 for the total project cost, requesting $100,000 for the DRI request. Another caveat that I will just mention here is that with the downtown improvement fund that is being proposed by DCC, we are looking at splitting up the $600,000 project fund between building and site improvements and public art installation. So that would be, we can talk about this in a minute, but that would be a total, you know, if that project were funded, that would be a total new application process for downtown business and property owners to apply for building and site improvements as well as public art installations. My recommendation would be that we take this off as a standalone project, just knowing some of the difficulty with getting agreements with downtown property owners and really save that funding for the overall downtown fund. So wanted just initial reactions on everyone's thoughts on kind of taking this off as a standalone project and sort of morphing it into the small project grant fund.
I agree. Great thought.
I agree as well. And I will add that when it comes to branding, wayfinding, public art, anything that is more visual, I think it's important to keep in mind the impact of folks wanting to like be seen next to or near something, right? That would have a more transformative effect. You know, think about all the iconic public art structures in New York or Chicago. You know, there's things that people come to see just those sculptures or structures. So I think it's definitely has the potential to be transformative. But we need to keep that in the back of our minds. Is this something that people are going to come here to take a picture in front of? Or when they see it, oh, that's Norwich, like immediately.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. I would say also too, kind of just building off that point, this application did have some really cool ideas for public art, and we can really use those ideas within, as we are developing the grant fund for this project, we can really use those ideas in support of the downtown fund and say, hey, look at these really cool art installations that we could implement in the downtown. So that is the one good thing that came out of this open call application.
My other question is a project like this, the public art, I know it's in the DCC, is that something that if the city were to decide to sponsor, like, and we kind of shift some of the city's proposals, like, could that fit there as, or am I kind of barking up the wrong tree? Because I think the public art piece is very important. And I would like to see some of that beautification wrapped in somewhere. I just don't want, just because we're taking this off the docket, that means no one's keeping their eye on it.
Right, absolutely. And I think that it would get wrapped up and still be accounted for if it were included in that downtown fund, if we were to separate some of the funding of the downtown fund specifically for public art installations.
Okay.
It sounds like this one comes off as a standalone project based on what I'm hearing. Show of hands. Thank you, everyone. And then we sort of melded those two together. But so as part of the DRI, there is one, each community can apply for up to $600,000 of funding for a revolving loan fund or grant program. So right now we do have a small project grant fund that is proposed by Development Shenango Corporation, and they currently administer and manage existing grant funds similar to what is proposed here. But this grant fund would really be to both support existing businesses and property owners within the downtown, implement more small building and site improvements, and then, as I mentioned, also reserve some of that funding specifically for public art. So in here, we do have the DRI funding request of $600,000, $400,000 of that specifically for building and site improvements, and $200,000 specifically for public art installations. And this would be something that would be funded by the DRI and locally administered by DCC. So there would be another application process that business and property owners or interested parties would apply for, and would have a different set of requirements, which the LPC can help to inform as well. So I didn't know if there were, it sounds like based on our other conversations that this is something that the LPC would be in support of, and something that our team should further develop with Carrie and the city.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. So we will keep that one on as well. Thank you, everyone. And why don't we save, just because we only have 7 minutes left, we should, it sounds like maybe we should just save all of the private development and rehabilitation projects for our subsequent meeting that we will schedule as soon as possible. And okay, we'll go with that. I appreciate everyone and their input that they just provided right now. I know that was a lot to get through so far, and there's still a lot more we have to get through, and there are some tough decisions that need to be made. So I appreciate it, and I think everyone is doing very well. So in terms of next steps, so our team is going to utilize the direction that we just got from you to move forward, or sort of identify other sources of funding for those projects that we just went through, and continually develop these projects and develop what we need to for the strategic investment plan, which is an overall project profile that details out specifics related to each of these projects. So that is going to be an ongoing task for our team and our sub-consultants as well. We did talk about changing our meeting from May 9th to May 12th to hold an in-person meeting. As of right now, that is scheduled for the Norwich High School, the LPC meeting being at 3 p.m., assuming that goes till about 5 p.m., and then the public workshop starting up at 6 p.m. to about 7:30. So we will connect with the LPC, or excuse me, we'll connect with Carrie, and I'll connect with Scott Ryan about if there's any conflicts with school dismissal, or any concerns regarding the tentative location for that, and get back to everyone. It sounds as though tentatively we might schedule another LPC meeting in advance of that May 12th meeting for April 28th at 3 p.m. But we will confirm that and make sure we send an email and meeting invite out to everyone in advance of that as well. So those are immediate next steps. I see 3 hands up. So Adrian, did you have a question?
Actually, no, it just was up from that last vote. I'm sorry.
Okay. Jamie?
So as we're going through all of the 33 projects and trying to put them in buckets of, yay, they're making the next step, and B, we're looking to see if there's other pipelines. Will there be an opportunity to look at the projects more in depth of what may have been presented, or what has been presented with the application so diverse that really we want to go into those details? I can imagine, like some of this public art stuff that we talked about, I'm sure there was some, like you referenced, there were some good ideas or proposals. I mean, sometimes people are very visual and they want to see the project or the enhancement to help making their decision. Is that part of the process at all?
It is part of the process. I would say for many of the applications that came through the open call, there aren't any drawn up plans or renderings or things like that. That is something that our team is really helping to fill the gaps with through this process. I believe we can share the open call for proposal applications that were submitted to us to the LPC. So I will get confirmation on that and hopefully be able to share that with everyone so you can see the information that was presented to us and that we're presenting back to you. And that does give a little bit more detail than the 1 to 2 sentences I'm providing you right now. And then I will also say that once we kind of get through this initial blush, our team will be developing these draft project profiles, which really goes into more detail of each project description, project justification, the capacity of each project sponsor. And before the LPC makes a final decision on what will be included in the strategic investment plan, which that vote will probably be taking place in June, the LPC will have that full project profile built out and be able to read those thoroughly to make your educated decisions and vote appropriately.
That's great. I just see so much enthusiasm and excitement in these projects, and you know, how wonderful would it be we could wave that magic wand and fund every single one of them. So I mean, I appreciate the time and effort and energy everybody has put into these, and a daunting task trying to figure out what projects rightfully would get this funding to help jumpstart, you know, downtown Norwich and the DRI section. So I applaud everybody that submitted, and it's exciting. So thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Jamie. And I will also say, and I've said this, and as a project team, we've said this to many communities, is that even if projects aren't funded as part of this process or recommended for funding as part of this process, it's always a really great exercise for each community to go through to really identify what those projects could be and maybe help them identify these other sources of funding. So I think that either way, whether we're funding process or we're recommending funding as part of this process or not, it's a great exercise for the community to go through and to understand what the priorities are for Norwich. John, did you have a question?
Yeah, and I'll be quick. And maybe you already said it, but if you didn't, the spreadsheet that you sent to us, will you be modifying that before we meet again the next meeting?
I can do that. Yes,
And
our team can.
I would suggest moving the ones that we're saying to move underneath everything, kind of, and then saying whether we're putting it in a pipeline for something else and or it's going away entirely, so that we can keep the list active so that we can see it as we go through the rest of them, just so we know it's there.
Yep, we will modify and we'll still keep all the projects on, in the same document, but as you mentioned, like showing the ones that we moved to the pipeline, and then that will also give us an updated estimate of where we are in terms of DRI requests. So we will start with that at the next meeting of, where we kind of made it to at the end of this meeting. And we'll go through all of those development and rehabilitation projects and really update from there. And as I mentioned, this is not the final call. So there will be opportunities for, the exercise where we do the prioritization with you spending your $10 million. So we'll do that with the LPC and the public. And that really helps also everyone rank their projects without necessarily ranking it also in front of everybody else. And it's really just a blatant way to show which projects got the most funding from your $10 million. And that really helps us prioritize at the end of the process as well. Okay, great. Well, as I mentioned, I really appreciate everyone's time. I know it's really hard to talk about these and make initial decisions, but I appreciate it, and we will be in contact regarding our tentatively scheduled LPC meeting, and I'll be in contact regarding the details for the public workshop and LPC meeting in May as well.
And Sam, I did just go ahead and did a calendar change to everybody just so they have it in their calendar for now, and that way at least if we make a change, everyone's got it held, and then we can update it as needed.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate it. Okay. With that, I hope everyone has a good night, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.